there are some specific punctual tasks that you have to perform from time to time when it's necessary, meaning organization. Sometimes you have to organize a meeting, you have to organize an online event in this situation as we are right now, some group calls, any kind of activities that involve your EWC colleagues. At some moment, you may be also appointed for the negotiation if you are a member of a special negotiation body. That means that you should always keep that as your task in some moment of your EWC activity. When necessary, you are also expected to do coordination, meeting coordination like this, virtual or face-to-face. I hope we will be back soon to the face-to-face meetings so you can actually meet your colleagues and have true, real exchanges in person. So you are expected mainly to be informed and to inform, to receive and share all the information that is necessary for the workers and for your other EWC colleagues, to report back to the workers that appointed you in this position as an EWC member. That can happen after meetings or anytime there is some information that you really need to share with the other workers. To participate in decisions. I know that this doesn't seem to be actually a task for an EWC member, but you will see that during these activities, there are moments when actually decision has to be made. When you need to decide about a negotiation strategy, when you need to decide about a position of your EWC, everything includes a decision. You need to sometimes that's not easy because you will have to follow the internal, external procedure, your own EWC procedure, always keeping in mind the company already in place norms and rules. You are expected to act collectively. That is always the mindset of an EWC member, and not only. I mean, all the worker representatives have this perspective. You are expected to network in any possible way, and we are going to discuss here in the next slides the means to do this networking. You have to keep in touch with the other workers, with your EWC colleagues, with other support circles that you can have that can help you do the best of your EWC activities. And last but not least, sometimes you are asked also to adapt, just as it happened with this new situation that we are facing. A few months ago, we were all asked to adapt to a new situation and without stopping the EWC activity that was running in a specific way before. When we defined the profile of an EWC member, we can think usually in terms of three main categories. The knowledge, what he or she should know, the skills, what an EWC member should do, and values and attitudes. This is something. This is a part that usually it's not included in the profile, but you will see that these are important aspects that really have to do with the complete profile of an EWC member. So we talk about to know, to do, and to be or to act in terms of specific principles. When we refer to the knowledge, we can have several categories of knowledge that an EWC member should have. First of all, and I put this on top, it's the legal knowledge. And that is the most challenging, usually, meaning that you should have information on European Union legislation, national, local laws, the transposition of the directive, and of course, your EWC agreement. You are not expected to be a lawyer, but yet you should have a certain level of legal knowledge, especially related to these specific aspects. You are also expected to have some knowledge on economic and financial aspects. Why is that important? Because in your activity and also in your negotiation process, and sometimes in the decision that you need to make in your EWC, you have access to financial and economic documents of your company. You can get some reports, you can get some statistics, and it's important to be able to interpret this information and to know how it can be used in your activity and how to share it further to your colleagues. You should also have some procedural knowledge, meaning that you should be familiar with the internal and external procedures. You have to meet these requirements, and also with some organizational, if the case, procedures. Here we can also include your own EWC procedures that you can set together with your colleagues, meaning the way you function, the way you communicate, the way you perform. One of the most wanted skills right now and knowledge, it's about the technical and IT knowledge. You should be familiar with communication tools, with the use of platforms, and any other kinds of online tools that can help you communicate. This is still not new, even if with the new COVID situation, we focus more on the online communication tools. Still, being part of a multicultural team, working at distance almost all the time, because you are able to meet maybe once a year, you are always expected to be in touch online. So this is not new skills, but yet now it's more focused. You should also have some cultural knowledge. And why I include this here? Because it's not always easy to be part of a multicultural team. You have to be aware of specific customs, specific ways of doing things, and you should be able to understand your colleagues and to be able to work together. And that includes this kind of knowledge. So, as you can see, there is quite a lot of knowledge that you should have, yet you are not expected to be an expert. And you will see at the end of this presentation why you don't have to reach this level, yet keep it in that point that can help you run your activity. Skills, what you should do. Here I try to separate the skills into main categories. Those that are, on my perspective, more professional, and other skills that are more focused on the social dimension. When you talk about professional skills, as the poll also showed, the first is the communication. Of course, you should be able to communicate in the best ways and in any way that you can adapt. So this communication flow will never stop. Decision making and synthesizing. As I was referring at the beginning, sometimes you are asked to make some decision, you are asked to report back, and that means that you should have some skills on this side, being able to select what is important to share back with your worker colleagues, and how to pass the national information to your EWC colleagues. That involves this kind of synthesizing skills. Organization. As I was saying at the beginning, sometimes you have to do this kind of organizational task, which I know are not easy, and especially working at distance. You should be able to do some coordination. If it's about coordinating a meeting, if it's about to coordinating an event or any other kind of initiative that you decide to run in common with your colleagues. Is that okay with the PowerPoint? Everybody can see it. I'm just okay. I just received a message that is.
We still see the pyramid if that's what you want to show us.
You can see the skill slide or not yet?
Yes.
Okay, then it's perfect. Then, last but not least, in the professional skills, you should be able to assess. And here I'm referring to assessing your own activity, meaning a kind of self-assessment. You should be able to assess the effectiveness of your EWC and also to assess situations and context that can help you make decisions in your EWC. What about the social skills? First of all is networking. Of course, this is the key skill that we need to keep in mind and directly related to all the other skills involved. Teamwork and cooperation. You are a team player. You are part of a multicultural group that even if it's not physically close and work together on a, let's say, daily basis, still this team, it's running and has to be maintained and has to be invested in all the time. And you always keep in mind the cooperation with your other colleagues. Sometimes you are asked to join initiatives and to be part of this multicultural team. Language skills. This is a key part of the EWC member profile. I know that this is quite one of the most challenging, but it's important because probably all of you know how important it is to have access to information, and access to information, it's always related to language. Having access to legal aspects, having access to internal or external data. Sometimes even your company's information can be a barrier from the language perspective. I always support that you can make the use of any kind of tools that you can have, even the Google Translate if it's necessary. But still, improving your language skill, it's always a good option, especially working with your colleagues in a multicultural environment. That can be a huge support for your communication and for your teamwork. And of course, in the matter of social skills, the multicultural skills, as I was mentioning in the knowledge category, you should be able not only to have some knowledge about the other cultures represented in your team, but also to be able to cooperate with members from a different culture, with different habits, with different ways of doing things and to performing activities. What about the values and attitude, the part that is usually left aside from the professional profiles, and not only for the EWC members, but also for other kind of professional profiles? Why it's important to talk about values and attitude? Because professionals usually act based on some principles that can be personal and can be organizational, or even can be, in this case, related to your group, your team. For an EWC member, it's important to have a mindset on responsibility. It's huge responsibility, from my opinion, to be appointed to represent your worker colleagues. And this can be, in some moments, even a heavy load on your shoulders. So we have to admit this and we have to recognize it. Collectiveness. You should always have a mindset, and all your action should go in the spirit of the collective best interest. Autonomy. You are working in a team, but yet at distance. So you are not able to ask for your colleague support right in the moment that you need it. Or sometimes you need to perform and to do some task alone, yet coordinated with the others. But you should be able to perform this by yourself. Principledness. That means that you should share the same principles with your EWC colleagues. And that is related to all the other values and attitudes that we set here. Adaptation. This is always needed. And it's a value that will help you develop your activity in the most effective way. Trust. Maybe you don't know each other very well. Maybe you just meet once a year. Maybe you do more activities together, but trust, it's really important because you need to exchange really key information, and you have to act together as a team. And that's why trust, it's really an important aspect of an EWC. Availability. I know that the communication with your EWC colleagues doesn't always happen in your working time or in the best moments for your activity. That's why these channels are usually always open. And I know that as a DWC member, you are always connected and you are always available for your colleagues. That is an important aspect, especially in a multicultural team where you should handle different time zones, different working time. So it's really an important aspect. And maybe one of the key values and attitudes is the vision and perspective. You need to know exactly where you are, what is your context, and especially you need to know where you are going for with your colleagues. How you can build and upgrade your profile. As I was mentioning at the beginning of this presentation, you are not expected to be an expert on all the knowledge categories that I mentioned before. You should have some certain level, but you can always improve your knowledge, your skills, and how can be done. This is an ongoing process, not something that starts with your EWC activities, and definitely it won't end with your mandate aim, let's say. How can be done? Can be done individually, meaning that yourself, you are responsible for upgrading and building your profile. You can read, you can study, you can do personal research, you can get informed about all the aspects that are really useful for your EWC activity and also for your professional profile. Why not? Because they are really connected, and in some cases they are really strongly connected. So you can do this by yourself alone anytime it's necessary and with all the means that you have at your disposal. You can build and upgrade your profile in your team, meaning in your EWC. How can be done? By sharing information, sharing best practices with your EWC colleagues and also with other support circles that you have around your EWC. You can have mutual exchanges of experiences, everything that can support the mutual learning inside your team. And the most important and the key way to build and upgrade your profile, it's always the training. And I always like to highlight these aspects for the EWC member, because it's not something that just has to be in your agreement, but it's a key, let's say, element in your agreement, because this access to training helps you not only to build and upgrade your profile, but also to have your EWC running better. Well, now the face-to-face courses are a bit on standby, but we always recommend to have this face-to-face training. And why? It's not just about the learning process, it's also about the team building. During these trainings that you are doing with your other EWC colleagues, you always improve your functioning as a team while learning new knowledge and new skills that will help you do your EWC work better. Now the focus is, of course, on the online training, and even with the online courses, we still aim to develop different aspects of the profile. And here I can give you some information, because I'm currently coordinating the online EWC courses for ETUI, and I can tell you that this is also a good alternative solution to upgrade your profile. We train a lot of participants from all over Europe and with different level, new entry EWC members, experienced EWC members. And it's always a good opportunity for you to improve your skills, to upgrade your knowledge, and to stay updated with things that happen in the EWC world. Always in your activity, make sure that you keep informed in any way that is possible. Staying connected with your colleagues, staying acquainted with the news, with everything that happens around you, because the EWC, it's not isolated, let's say, and it's not only about your company, but it's about the general trend, sometimes even the European situation, now even a global situation that we are facing. So being always informed, it's really important. It helps you have a proactive action, and always knowing and being, let's say, one step ahead the situations. Always keep acquainted. This is related to information, but it's let's say a next level of being informed. Get trainings anytime you have the opportunity, at least once a year, and for the reasons that I mentioned before. It's not only for the learning, but also for the team benefit. And get expert support. As I mentioned it, you don't have to be an expert on legal aspects, you don't have to be an economist, you don't have to be a lawyer, but you can have the support of a true expert, somebody who really knows that area and can help you in a certain situation. Remember that you have the right to this expert support, so never forget to use it. And this is really the statement from the directive, saying that in order to perform the representative role fully and to ensure that the European Work Council is useful, employees' representative must report to the employees whom they represent, of course, and must be able to receive the training they require. Why I choose this statement to finish my presentation is because I think that it summarized the best the EWC member profile. It's your mission there, and it's the best way to do it, meaning get always training and get always support, and make sure that you have a strong support circle around you, and always be a team player. Well, I think I'm in time. Thank you very much. And if there are questions, if we have some time.
You are absolutely in time. I don't see any question, but anyway, thank you for the perspective of more of an industrial psychology or competence-based approach rather than the legal approach we had before. So thank you very much, Alina, for this perspective. I think it's very useful to know about the skills. Not only about the directive, but the skills essential for effective performing of EWC duties. Speaking about skills, I know that you are operating in 5 languages or so, or more, Alina. So yeah, I'm envious to you about those skills you are having them. Okay, maybe there will be, if you can stay for the next question and answer sessions, then maybe there will be questions. But now, without further delay, I'm calling to the floor Petra. Are you there? You can take the floor.
Start unmuting myself.
Perfect.
That helps. Hello to you all. Good to see you, quite a few of you. Some of you I've met before, and lots of you I have not met or only met on the phone. But it's good to see the people who have a camera. That would be really nice, because I always like to see people and look people in the eye, which is impossible, I have to admit. Another impossibility and is physical training, and I have to say I'm a trainer by profession, and I really miss the real contact with the people, getting into a room and do training. Because as Alina was finishing her presentation, saying, yeah, physical presentation, if you need to do some group building exercises, but also to learn skills, I definitely prefer and face-to-face training, right? So that we can see what happens, and I can see where you're at listening to me, or we can have a true dialogue. But anyway, we'll try it today as it is. Does any one of you has the presentation, can put it on screen for me? Is that you, Siska, Cyprian? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, you have taken me by surprise. Richard should have your presentation. We were all using our presentation, just shared from our own desk.
Oh, I could do. Let me.
But we have a central repository of PowerPoint, so you can try your own. But if that won't work, we have those.
Do you want me to try it on my own? Okay, I could. But maybe in the meantime that I'm trying to get it on the screen, I'd like to ask, because what I'm going to do is a little bit more about information and consultation. I'm not sure what you've been discussing this morning. I just quickly scanned the overview of questions in the chat about, how can we prove it's transnational, yes or no? I think that's part of indeed information consultation. Please give me your questions or what you expect me to do in the chat, and we can try to address it. So to make sure that we're not.
Just in the meantime, Petra, we are ready to show your presentation if you prefer to.
Perfect, if you can.
Okay,
yes.
Stella, go on.
Let me see if I get the screen view. Speaker. Yeah, we're there. So yeah, maybe good to introduce myself. I realized I always tend to forget. I'm Petra Molenaar. I work for a company that's called SBI Format. Tomorrow you will have Chef, my other colleague, giving part of a presentation of a training. What I do on a day-to-day basis is support, help, train, being the expert support for European Works Councils. And I've been doing that for the last, let's say, 20 years. So I've seen many different EWCs, many different companies, and many different processes. So I hope to be able to bring you some of my experiences in this half an hour. It's not very long, but I'm sure you've shared a lot of your issues already. And please feel, I can't see anything in the chat yet, so there are no questions, but I will continue then. Next slide. So what I want to do is I'll give you the legal framework, very short, because I believe you probably know what it is about. Then I think we should spend some time on information and consultation in practice, and how could you organize this, because that's not always that easy. I think the law is easier than the real life in information and consultation. Okay, next slide. Okay, if we look at the directive, which is good, because directive is fairly simple, right? There's not so much text. So for all of you, if you want to know your legal rights, just read the directive, and we have a lot of whereas clauses. So whereas the explanation of the directive, and we only have actually a small part, that's the legal part, in which you can read what your role is. And the key role, obviously, of an EWC is to, and this is Article 1 of the directive, so the legal part, is the key role of an EWC, and the purpose of the directive is to improve the right to information and consultation of employees in transnational undertakings. So anything else that is derived actually from this key role. So the key objective of an EWC is information and consultation. So I'm quite happy to be able to address that part, because that is really the key role. And of course, to do that properly, you need skilled forum, you need a skilled select committee, but the purpose is to be informed and consulted in your company. Next slide. And I'm pretty sure you've read this. So information and consultation, and these definitions are the definitions from the directive, and probably also the definitions in your own company agreement, because I guess that most of you have these these definitions taken over, wordy taken over in your own agreement, because that makes life a bit simpler, I would say. And information, and I think what companies have realized, maybe not all of the companies, but at least in the directive, what's changed is that information is consultation is not a one-time moment. It's a process, and I think that's important to realize. And this is what I sometimes tell management as well. So it's not, oh, I've informed you, and now you can give your views, you can give your opinion. No, it's a whole process. I think that's the key. That's the key thing. So information. What is it about? It's this is in the directive. It's transmission of written and verbal data by the employer to the employees representatives, in order to acquaint themselves and to examine the subject matter. And I think that's important. So to acquaint and examine at a time in such fashion on which such content as to enable the workers to undertake an in-depth assessment of the possible impact, and where appropriate, prepare for consultations. So this information is, there is a timeline in this definition, right? So it should be, you should be able to acquaint yourself and to examine it, and it should be given at such a time, in such fashion and with such content, so that you can do an in-depth assessment of the possible impact. Well, already here, you know, the wording is so much simpler than the reality, because yeah, what is enough information, right? And how much time do you need to acquaint yourself? Can you do an analysis, a counter analysis of the problem, of the decision at stake, of the matter? How much time can you use to do this in-depth assessment? Because of course, I'm pretty sure that you've all have that companies actually at the very end of the decision-making process, and then they will say, oh, by the way, this is what we're going to do. And yeah, please feel free to ask questions if you need more information, right? So that's normally what happens. But this definition is very important. I always use it. I always use it for management. Next slide. Because the second slide, next slide, is consultation. And also, again, this is in the legal part of the directive. So consultation is about the establishment of a dialogue and the exchange of views between the EWC and management. And here it says, again, at such time, in such fashion, and with such content as to enable you to express an opinion within reasonable time with regard to the responsibilities of management. And the last sentence, which may be taken into account in the decision-making process. And you know, the word may doesn't make it very strong, but it does make it strong time-wise, because someone's microphone's open. I don't know who.
It's Manuel Stolz. Manuel, can you mute your microphone?
Yeah, much better. Oh, thanks. So again, so legally you can say, well, we can give our opinion, but they may take it into account again and say thank you, and then thanks for your opinion, which legally is true, right? So this again is true. So they can say, okay, you've given your opinion, we've followed the procedure, you know, we've given you enough information in proper time, and we will take it into account, because if you come with a good idea, who are we not to look into it? So it legally doesn't give much power, but the only thing is that it should be, so the dialogue should take place before the decision is taken. And I think that's very important in this part of the definition. So again, the timing is crucial. So before they take decisions. So before they execute decisions. But because again, and I've seen that often enough, and you've probably seen that often enough as well, that they're already sort of implementing decisions. And by the way, yes, we did change the European structure. Yeah. So again, that's the definition. Next slide. No, one before. One back. Yeah. And then we get the word transnational. Actually, there's only 3 definitions really key in the directive. So it's information, it's consultation, and it's the word transnational. Because what is transnational? The scope is limited to transnational issues. That's very clear in the directive. And what is transnational is it's a bit vague sometimes, because here they say matters that concern the group as a whole, or at least 2 establishments situated in 2 different member states. And so when there's 2 countries, 2 member state countries impacted, you could say it's transnational. So that's very simple. Here there's no, so for transnational, there's no significance, right? So two countries, it's transnational. There's another case, and I saw that question in the chat. If you're talking about a US company and they take a decision in the US about one country, for instance, they decide to close a factory in Italy, for instance, and it's the US company and only one company's country is impacted. Is it transnational? Don't know. So this is the red part. The top part is in the legal part of the directive, and the other 2 that are below, they are in the explanation. So they're not legal, but they're in the explanation to explain, how it should be used. So they could say matters which, regardless of the number of countries involved, are of importance for the workforce in terms of scope of their potential effect, or which involve transfers of activities between member states. Well, transfers of activities, I always use that. That's 2 countries. If you close one factory in Italy and they move the production, for instance, to Germany, then it's transnational, right? And another whereas clause, because it's the explanation, the employees must be properly informed and consulted when decisions which affect them are taken in a member state other than in which they are employed. So again, this is something I often use in the discussion with management. Because I can say, well, it's not so much, because this is always a discussion. They say, well, we think it's not transnational because, the effects might only be in France, or the effects might only be in one country, and, they're not linked because we do not have a linked business. So the effects are not, and I said, no, it's not so much about the consequences of a decision. It's about where the decision is taken. So it's the strategic decision actually. And that is part of the discussion. Because the consequences are obviously always, at all times, are always local. Of course, they execute locally. They have to discuss with the unions, they have to discuss a social plan. But the decision as such is not taken locally. So I always argue with management, it's not so much the execution of the decision, it's where the decision is taken, because you, as an EWC, and that's to become involved when information and consultation, you have to be able to discuss the decision with the people that take decisions. If you're a US company, it's fairly difficult, but again, you should discuss the decision at the highest possible level. Good question, Andre. If a matter is brought to the EWC, do all countries have a say, even if it doesn't affect them, or only the affected countries? E.g., issue affects only France and Germany and is brought to the EC, would other countries get an equal voice? Yeah. Basically, and Frederic, thank you. You already give part of the answer. Yeah, basically, it's all members, because as an EWC, you're a group, and you get seats based on the number of employees in your country. But many agreements, they have in the agreement something like, if a transnational matter occurs, if a significant matter occurs, when we need to involve the EWC, then it would be the select committee plus the impacted countries. We have a meeting, for instance, an extraordinary meeting of the select committee and the impacted countries. This is the group. And then you can say it's like committee gives an opinion, but in fact, it's the EWC that gives the opinion. Is that an answer? So it's the full EWC. Everyone gets an equal voice regardless. Okay, next slide. So that's what I said. These are these 3 slides are actually in the directive, right? It's information, consultation, and transnational. And then you have your own agreement. So again, it's very crucial to know your own agreement concerning these topics, because information shall relate in particular to transnational issues where significantly affect workers' interests. And significant, it's always it's a buzzword, because I know management uses that all the time. You say, oh, it's not significant. It might be transnational, but it's only 2 people here and 3 people there. So again, this is something that you have to discuss very often, and you have to look into your agreement. Is it really significant? Because if it's not significant, of course, you don't want to deal with it. But if it's significant, you want to deal with it. And I think it's good that you're able to motivate it. Check your own agreement. I think on all these things, there are quite some agreements. I've seen quite some agreements in which you have some conditions for significance. For instance, they say, well, it's only significant if 10% of the workforce is impacted. Well, if you have that, it makes your life a little bit more, well, maybe simpler is what management would guess. I would say it's more complex, because there are transnational changes that do not affect 10%, and then you always have to argue, well, it is, it's a big impact. It's also in your agreement what the difference is between information and consultation topics, because on information you have a whole list, and on consultation maybe you have a smaller list. Or do you have all topics on information and consultation? That would make it more interesting. And where and when does this information and consultation take place? Do you have the select committee plus, as I said? Do you have a full extraordinary meeting? Do you only have virtual extraordinary meetings? I've seen many agreements, and obviously management wants to limit costs. We'll try virtual meetings. So how have you organized your INC process? That's only in your own agreement, and you have to know your own agreements. And what sort of provisions do you have in your agreement for these extraordinary meetings? Next slide. Yeah, so actually this is all about the legal position. It's not very complex, but the reality is much more complex. I read a question about transnationality. If workers are not moved from one country to another, but simply decide to increase strength in a country that has much lower labor cost, which does not lead to redundancies, but not increase work in a member country. If workers from normally workers are not moved from one country to another country, but it's the work that is moved from one country to another country. And of course, we've seen. So someone is having his microphone on.
It's Manuel again. Oh.
Yeah. Manuel is in a car, I guess. So it's, transfer of work is a transnational topic, and it's always a discussion in the EWC. And what you see is that companies, they move to, they wouldn't say lower cost, but they say better cost countries, right? Probably, so they wouldn't argue, no, it's not low cost, it's better cost countries. And we all know we can't do much. You can discuss this, but you can't do much. And I've seen it happen. First it was Hungary, from Hungary to Romania, from Romania to India. This is a major concern. Has been a major concern for the unions over the past 10 years. 20 years even. And we can't stop it. because in the end, we don't have less work. We don't have less work, but the work itself is changed in the different countries. Are there more questions about the legal position? I think it's pretty straightforward. So it's your agreement, which is crucial, obvious, and it's the directive, only the 3 definitions. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. But in practice, it's a process. As I started, it's not a one-time event. It's a process and a procedure, and information must be given on time to be able to do an in-depth assessment, and consultation must be done before decision making. I think that's very clear to all of us. Next slide. Yeah. But in reality, in real life, it's very often a different world. So yeah, I've seen many companies, and what you see is you get bits and pieces. I can see Geert, I'm working with Geert in his company, and that's what happens in that company. So they get bits and pieces of the changes. So every step is a bit of new information, which is very difficult to follow as an EWC if you don't get the overall picture, right? So that's a difficult one. And I've seen companies and EWC members say as well, in our company, it's always, we have a very interesting strategy. We have a strategy of shoot, ready, aim. So we shoot first, and then we aim much later. And again, that is something which is difficult to manage as an EWC, because you're always behind. They've already sort of started to execute before they start aiming. And very often you can hear the excuse, sorry, we can't share that with you. We have a stock listed company and we have our rules, we can't share it. So all in all, the directive and the law that we have is based on rational decision-making process, right? So we have ideas, we think of alternatives, we investigate the alternatives, and at the end, if you look at the arrow, we take a decision, or we prepare a decision. In reality, the EWC is always at the very end, so just before the final decision. And that is because, and that's logic, because before it's the directive that says, and it's the law that says that you need to be able to have an in-depth assessment of the impact. So it's quite obvious that before they can share it with the EWCs, you must be able to do an in-depth assessment of the impact. So we make our lives pretty difficult if we do that. So I always try to be earlier in the process and then agree with management. Okay, we can understand that you do not know exactly what the impact is, but we want to be earlier in this whole, in the arrow. We want to, first steps. If you encounter a problem, let's have a discussion. Let's have a brainstorm. Let's discuss about what the issues is, so that we're earlier in the process to in the decision-making process, and maybe have a bit more power. Well, that's in the perfect world. I haven't seen that happening very often, to be honest. Next slide. Yeah, so what I always suggest is to organize your information channels, your own information. Make sure that you have early warning systems. That's why the country updates in your EWC, you have to start with your country update, because that's where you understand what's happening. And if a person only gives information from his particular site in Italy or in Spain or in, it's okay, because then you learn, okay, maybe they're already in the UK, they're already doing this, and this will happen in other countries as well. So it's a transnational topic. So you try to find the transnational topics. If it's not a case, if they really want to change and they bring up a project, then I would always try, that's the first step with management, always try to agree on a case-by-case scenario. So, okay, this is a huge transformation, and this is a huge impact. Let's organize our INC procedure in this and this manner. And that shows if you're a bit more experienced, I think that's where you want to be. You want to discuss with management how you go through this whole process. Try to align the INC procedure at the European level with the local level, because sometimes you have more power at the local level. Try to align this with the unions. Try to align with the local works councils. Make them understand, and ask them not to give their opinion before you've given your opinion. Try to align and try to build together. Try to build this power together. I've developed some information template for management that if they want to do a project that they know, okay, this and this and this is what we want as an EWC. I think, you know, if you're more into the process, it's useful because they know what you expect, and you don't have to spend hours and days waiting on answers to questions that you have. And also, and I think Alina said the same thing, make sure that you develop your Organise, your internal, but also your external expertise. Make sure that you build your network, that you have a network in place, and that you have an expert supporting you, because these processes are very, very complex sometimes. And you're in the company, in the process, and sometimes it's easier that a person that's from outside can have a better view on what's happening and have some experiences in this is how they did it in the other EWC, for instance. I'm close to the end, and I see. Can you scroll down, because I think I had a suggestion on the time frame, on the process. Your own information flow, I think that speaks for itself. Organize your own network, right? It's important. Next slide. Yeah, this one. I think everybody will receive the slides. I've given this to you as an example on information and consultation procedure on how I do that with management together, because you need to be able to align that with management. And you can agree on sort of a similar process. It doesn't have to be like this exactly with these steps, but I always think there is a step of getting information, and from the information, you know, you get from management, from your own members, and then you have to sort of give an opinion. And that would be, I always prefer to do that in writing, because this opinion you can share with the rest of the company, with all your colleagues, etc. And always take a role in monitoring the implementation, because legally it's information consultation. You've given your opinion. That's it. But I always try to extend that a little bit, try to monitor, try to keep your foot between the door, because things go wrong very often. Try to monitor and evaluate the projects that you do. Yeah, I think well-trained is important. You're doing that now. It's, you know, it's a bit one way, unfortunately, and hopefully not death by PowerPoint. I'm a bit afraid of a training tool like this. So I do have some questions. Let's have a quick look. Early enough.
There is a question from Romano about the pre-directive agreements, and there's something should be done on the European level with them. Maybe you can refer to that.
What about the directive? Let me see. So bits and pieces. What can we do legally when a company makes a decision before information and consultation process? That's a question. That's a good question. It's always a question is asked, and of course, what can you do? You can go to, you know, ultimately, and I think this is something. If you want to have a proper information and consultation process, it's you have to be aligned with management as well. So they have to be, you know, willing to take you on board, willing to not just see it as a tick in the box exercise, but really willing to involve you, engage you. If they keep on doing it, and I think this is building your case, it's very important and relevant that you build your case and document all the relevant documents, and then ultimately the only thing you can do maybe is to go to court. And sometimes it's just enough to tell them. So I've always tried many ways. So first it's communicating with your colleagues, with all your colleagues. They never like that too much, about the way they treat the EWC. So that would be the first thing I always try. And if it doesn't work, sometimes you have to say, well, okay, let's put it in front of a judge and let's see how they feel about this. So yeah, that's legally. And the only thing so they can't take you can't take them to court for the content. So not like we don't agree with this decision. You can only say they have not consulted with us, even though it's transnational and significant. If that's the case, you can go to court. And push management, align with management, push them to have early enough. Yeah, push them to have early information. But sometimes, and I have to say, sometimes it's also the EWC that has fallen asleep. Because of management, there's some certain bells. You need to develop a sort of early warning system, and especially this select committee, I think, that you listen between the lines. And sometimes I say, oh, we're analyzing, we're using external the Boston consultancy, or we're using some sort of agency to analyze our business. Then you also know, okay, something is happening, and we need to know when and what. So try to understand, and this is training and experience, I would say. And again, if you have an expert, they're quite used to this lingua, I would say.
Pedro, there is a question from Maria from Comisiones Obreras about the consultation process. Is it always desirable to do a final statement on consultation? What would you answer to that?
Is it always desirable? I feel it is, even if you can't say anything, because you can share that with your colleagues. It's easy to have a statement to share with colleagues, and sometimes it pushes management again. So it puts pressure on them and say, okay, this is the statement we're going to give you. We're very negative for this and this and this reasons. And we will share this with our colleagues as of 5 days as of now, or something like that. And I bet they will get back to you. So yes, I would say not making a statement is always a lost case, because management, they don't care.
Yeah, I agree with that. Any more questions to Petra? As you see, very practical advices here. So dare to ask, don't hesitate to ask questions. We can take one or two more.
So there's a question about no consultation provision, even though it's signed under the new directive. And as I said, consultation is is in the legal part. So if it's in the legal part, you're entitled to it anyway. Then it's applicable. So Frederik should.
Yeah, okay. Any more questions at this moment?
Some sort of action locally.
There is a question from Andre. Even EWC needs to take the company to court. Where does the funding for the legal expenses usually came from?
That's an interesting one. And it depends. It depends very much. we've seen different cases. I think sometimes the unions will help you. I know in some, if you link to, for instance, the Dutch or the German law, it's easy because in that law it's foreseen, right? It's foreseen that if you go to court, the costs are for the employer. In others, it's not that clear. It's not that clear. So in some, I've always tried to build it in the agreement that legal costs are for the employer, but it doesn't always work. But for instance, if you're on the UK law, again, there's often not included, but then it's fairly simple to go to this arbitration committee, as they call it in England, and it's fairly cheap. So that makes it easier as well. I think in France, it's very often the union, and I think it's also paid for by the company as well. But I'm not so familiar with the French law. Probably Frédéric can give an answer to that. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. Who asked this? To support. Is so some sort of action locally to support of another member in country facing? And this is an interesting question, Kwasi, because it happened once with an EWC I had. It was the Irish, no, it was the Spanish representative who started a strike for the Irish co-workers, and management was really out there because it's why? No, that's not the role of the EWC. That's a union role, and you better be very, very careful because there's legal country systems. So it's very difficult to organize some sort of action. It is done, but then it's coordinated by the trade union in industrial or the Transport Federation, or then it's organized. But not like for the Spanish workers, they go on strike for the Irish colleagues. That's not a good idea.
Okay, Petra, thank you very much for your input. I don't see any more questions at the moment. So, yep, excellent presentation and to the point answers to the questions so far. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course, you're welcome to stay more if you wish. There will be another question and answer sessions before the ending of the day. So now I would like to have a short input from my side on literature, so a kind of inspiration for you from literature, and after that, Frédéric will do the panel. So let me share my screen, and I want to just to bring up the old model of Wolfgang Laker to you. Maybe some of you are familiar with this model, but for the new members, definitely it will be something new. But it's a reading worth to take. So have it in your bookshelf if you can find it in your library or somewhere in the internet. So the model is from 2001, so it's nearly 20 years old for the moment, but it's still valid. Authored by Wolfgang Laker. It was a German scientist. It is still living, and he created the first typology or the model of EWCs. And this is the model. It is based on two axes. One is the low recognition or legitimation, and the high recognition legitimation at the bottom of the screen is the low recognition, and in the up the screen is a high recognition. This is the one.
Excuse me, Cyprian, we're seeing your build slides.
You're seeing my build slides?
Yeah.
All right, I see my presentation slide. So I'm not sure how to proceed. I will stop sharing and do it once again, all right?
Fine.
How about now?
That looks great.
Okay.
Although we're still seeing it as some build slides.
Technology always causing some problems.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
That's better, right? Okay. So now you have, if you can see it, now you have four types of EWCs, as described as by Wolfgang Leike. The first one is the symbolic EWC. This one doesn't have a real influence or real power. It's not recognized by the management, and there is a lot of competitiveness among the countries that creates this EWC. So this is the starting point, and I hope you will fast move to the next stage, which is a service provider EWC. And service provider EWC often is it's often driven by the management, by the CEO, or it provides information consultation services to the national level, and that's also, it's not very proactive, but it's highly recognized by the management at least. So this is the second step of the development of the EWCs. The third step will be the project-oriented EWC. And the project-oriented EWC is the one who tries to create some task forces or the working groups just to develop EWC and tackle more issues by this body. And the fourth and the final stage of EWC development, as described in this model, is the participative EWC, which has a high recognition from the management, and among the members there is a high cooperation. So this is the final development stage of EWC, and I hope you all will be in this point somewhere in a moment. The symbolic EWC has very little real activity, no consultation, information provided is minimal. EWC members take little initiative, and the management overuses the confidentiality and the secrecy to paralyze or petrify the EWC as it is. So you can see the symbolic EWCs do not work and are not effective in terms of the directive. So better not be in this position. The service providers obtain some information, but usually there is no real consultation. So this is the situation that I'm hearing very often from you. We have information consultation process described by Petra, but we don't get any consultation. So this is the second level of the EWC development. The features of this stage is a strong national chair or a select committee which leads the process. But on the other hand, the EWC is often seen as serving national level processes, or to be the worst on the worst serving the management. So this is a downside of this stage. They are EWCs like that are easily controllable by the management, but they have a feeling of cohesion and the self-esteem because all seems to be working correctly, but it is of course not working very good. So there is often there is no union coordinator, and there are difficulties in understanding the workers' perspective at this stage. The third stage is project-oriented EWCs. They are organizing the working groups, developing the projects. They are improving the transnational information consultation processes. They develop interest in internal organization, creating the network of supporters to the EWC, and we can say that there is a sufficient exchange of information and a quite good degree of consultation. So if you are there, if you can find your EWC at this stage in this description, it means that you are at the right position, at the good place. But it's not ideal because there is an ever-going struggle for the EWC to function effectively. So there is always a tension between EWC and the management. There's the feeling of struggle, a never-ending struggle. So there is a room for development. EWC members feel the need of strong legal background, so they are looking for trainings on legal trainings, legal background, and an international structure to survive. So there is a need of cooperating with ETUC, ETAFs, and coordinators and experts, and create a bigger circle. The fourth and the final stage of development is a participatory EWC. And they are, of course, well-functioning and management appreciates employee input. They go beyond the legal requirements of the directive. EWC understands the managerial perspective, but at the same time, it remembers to be driven by the workers' perspective. So the both perspective and the managerial and the workers' perspective are being taken into consideration. And the confidentiality is well defined and commonly understood. This is very important, that there is a clear agreement, either a formal one or informal one, between EWC and the management on the confidentiality, on the usage of confidentiality. And there is a little secrecy. Just to have your attention to the follow-up to the latter model, and there is another model, a model created by Mr. Herman Kotov. It's much later, 2014, and Mr. Kotov has 5 stages in his model, which are like that. The first stage is the marginalized EWC. So this is more or less similar to the symbolic EWCs in the previous model. The second stage is a toothless tiger, EWC that seems to be powerful, but it cannot many more things part in forming, and that's all. And the third stage is a foil fencer. It means that the EWC is struggling with the management, is struggling to broaden the scope. And the fourth level is something called diaspora advocate. And the name is a bit tricky, but it means that at the certain point, the representatives from the one country take control over EWC. Usually, it is a group of representatives from the home country which are taking control and acting as a hosts for the other countries, taking them their opinions into the consideration, but they feel like the EWC is theirs. And the final stage is a co-managing body. So this is more or less the same as a participatory EWC in the previous model. And there is, of course, a short description of those 5 stages of this model. You will have them in the slides. I won't go into details. My main idea for this presentation is not to go into details, but to have your awareness on the different stages of the EWC development, and to show you that there is a long way of developing this body. There isn't the one level that all of you EWCs are at the moment. You still need to develop those, and those 2 models of Mr. Kotov and Mr. Laker can serve as a framework for developing your EWC. So that would be it. That would be my short presentation. Can somebody stop my screen sharing, because I have 2 screens and my controls are on the one that I was not presenting, and this is very funny. I'm experimenting with 2 screens. So yeah. So thank you for this. Frederic, you can take the floor now.
Merci, Cyprien. Thank you for your presentation. So I'm Frédéric Thioland. I'm the education officer at ETY, and I will give you a short presentation also on the superpower of European Work Council. So let me share my screen. Okay, I guess it works now. Good. So what I will try to show you is that you have a kind of superpowers as European Work Council because you are representing the European workforce. And the European Work Council is the only body that represents all European workers, and this is why you are so important. Cyprien show you a presentation just before with different level of European Work Council. This slide is quite similar in the idea. There's a different step to of European Work Council. At the bottom, it's European Work Council that receive almost no information, can do nothing, and is never consulted. And at the top of the slide, it's European Work Councils that have a good cooperation and have joint project and can do interesting things. So I will more focus on this part. Petra and Cyprien and Alina have told you before about the competencies of the European Work Council. So according to the directive, you have to be informed and consultant of the structures, the economic and financial situation, the activities, employment level, relocation, etc. So that's what is in the directive and in many OU agreements. For this, you have also means like the link with the trade unions that can support you. You have sometimes the right to get an expert, as Petra or others. And you have also access to sites, which is sometimes important. It exists in many agreements that the European Work Council can visit colleagues in national and local sites. So that's your means, but I want to go further and see what you can do. There's many other topics that a European Work Council can deal with, and it go beyond the directive, and it go beyond sometimes beyond your agreement. So I will share with you some nice practices, and it will show you that you have many possibilities. First, we can start with the outsourcing. You see, I've mentioned Deutsche Bahn and Air Liquide. Can also mention Unilever. For instance, Unilever has signed an agreement in last March. It was an agreement between the European Council and the management to postpone all the restructuring operation because of the COVID-19. So the aim was during the epidemic phase and the COVID-19 pandemic, no more restructuring in the group. So that's a very concrete achievement of a European Council. At Deutsche Bahn, it was very interesting also. It was in 2015 as Deutsche Bahn decided to create a shared service center in Bucharest for the accountability, and it affected the thousands of European workers across Europe. And the European Council negotiate a month to get an agreement with the management to provide the minimum standards for all the employees affected by this relocation. Other example, also by Bayer, they also reached an agreement with the management for all the employees affected by the restructuring. And we have many examples of such agreement or declaration to give guarantee to the employee affected by outsourcing process. Profit sharing is also a matter that is in the scope of the European Work Council. There's, I think, 4 or 5 agreements by Solvay about profit sharing on worldwide level now, concluded with the European Work Council. And Airbus was one of the first to conclude an agreement on profit sharing for all the European workers. It was several years ago already. Digitization, you have also many very interesting agreements or practice. One of the best and most interesting is by Unilever. They also have an agreement, a European Framework Agreement on the Future of Work, signed in March last year. And the aim was to face all digitalization and the impact of employment and skills with a budget given by the company to increase the scale of the employees. Solvay has also concluded an agreement on digitization with the aim to have a specific process of information and consultation on such issues, and that the management, before any decision to introduce a new technology, must inform, consult, and have an impact analysis, human impact analysis of the project. Also topics are corporate social responsibility. You have also agreements or charter in many European councils, as Veolia or Unicredit. In the bank sector, it was an interesting agreement also on the responsibility to sell responsibly financial instrument. We have also union rights. Solvay has an agreement with the European Work Council recognizing the competences of unionists, and all employees have being members of information and consultation body. Also a lot of good initiative about equal opportunities. Carrefour, for instance, have work on at the European Work Council level on a declaration against the violence against about the violence against women. It was the first work from the European Work Council, and it was then added to the international framework agreement of Carrefour. And the declaration calls employers not to punish female employees on ground of incompetence before first satisfying themselves that such shortcomings are not linked to a personal problem, and to show empathy, listen, and to be on the alert if they observe changes in a female employee's behavior. So just to give you an idea on what a European Work Council can do, you can also imagine many things about social protection. You can have maternity leave increased for all employees in the group. You can have also a social protection in case of death of an employee, that the wife and children receives the same thing across Europe. So many examples exist of European Work Councils that can do more than only information and consultation. So this was my conclusion. It's to give you an idea on the potential of the European Work Council, on everything you can do with your colleagues. And I think it's important that you know the real power you can have. And now, if you have any question, I will be pleased to answer. And I will ask also Sandro Ricci and Jean-Philippe Charpentier from Verizon if they want to take the floor to get their reaction. I know, for example, that by Verizon, they have not the possibility to go on these issues, but Jean-Philippe can also tell you a little bit about the superpower of the Secretary of the European Work Council that fight at the UK court to obtain the right to be informed and consulted. So it's the first step before you can deal with these very relevant issues. So thank you for your attention, and I'm very happy to take questions. So I see in the comments that the fourth level of EWC are rather rare. It's right, but it's of course we always aware that European Council are rarely informed and consulted before the decision. So it's there's also very few European Work Councils that can manage it and to deal with the issue as I have presented to you. Any question, or may I ask Jean-Philippe to take the floor from Verizon? Or Sandro?
Oui, bonjour, mais moi je parle en français, si ça ne dérange pas, quelqu'un peut me traduire? Bonjour. Voilà, mon nom c'est Sandro Ricci, je travaille chez Workline. Effectivement, la première fois que nous avons eu un CE européen, enfin, dans le cadre du SNB, parce que ce n'est pas encore créé, la première fois qu'on a eu le meeting, c'était assez agréable. Comme m'avait dit une des présentatrices, le café, à manger, etc. Tout était impeccable. Au niveau du programme, ça l'était moins. il prévoyait déjà, on a commencé le groupe spécial de négociation en janvier, pour le terminer dans leur programme environ entre juin et septembre. Tout ça avec des meetings relayés de mois en mois par 2 jours. Et chaque 2 jours, il y avait le premier jour, c'était une préparatoire, le deuxième, c'était une officielle, une plénière. Et donc, c'était un petit peu un engrenage, sans que les gens savaient où mettaient le pied. Finalement, il y a eu le confinement, ce qui nous a aidés pour espacer les réunions, réfléchir et amener des experts. Et on a fait appel aussi à vos services. Si vous vous rappelez, Frédéric, voilà, vous êtes venu, vous avez participé aussi à une préparatoire. Et donc, à ce moment-là, on a ouvert les yeux sur d'autres choses. Bon, il faut savoir, c'est pas la première fois que j'assiste à une réunion du conseil d'entreprise. Peut-être pas européen, mais ça fait quand même 12 ans que j'en fais. Et je suis aussi un des négociateurs pour Workline. Donc, j'ai l'habitude un petit peu d'avoir un contexte parfois un peu tendu. Ici, c'est notre collègue de la Hollande qui a réagi plus vite que nous, parce qu'elle a dit qu'elle ne voulait pas suivre le programme avec des journées fixes et avec des journées fixes. Donc, vraiment suivre le programme pour arriver, pour aboutir à un scénario d'accord, d'agreement pour faire un comité européen, alors que nous avions 3 ans. Cette accélération a fait que, bon, on a marqué toute une série d'accords, non, de désaccords plutôt, pas d'accords, de désaccords, sur les points de la direction, notamment pour les mandats, pour les mandats de chacun. Hein. Au début, c'était voilà, un pourcentage par rapport à la masse totale pour chaque pays. Chaque pays avait un mandat par rapport, je vais dire, à 10% du total. Si on avait 10 000 membres du personnel et que notre société en fait 1002, on avait un mandat ou 2 mandats selon les cas de figure. Ce qui était relativement peu comparé à d'autres avec un minimum de 100 personnes qui pouvaient travailler dans un pays du groupe. Ce qui nous a amené à d'autres problèmes et donc on a dû se voir et discuter, ce qui a fait ralentir le scénario. Et on est vraiment, vraiment au stade, je vais dire, préliminaire de choisir un expert, de le faire confirmer par la direction. Tout ça pour en arriver à dire que au départ, ça avait l'air si simple et en fait, voilà, c'était pour essayer de noyer le poisson et de, comment dirais-je, de faire accepter certaines choses qui nous auraient porté préjudice par la suite. Voilà.
Merci, Sandro.
Merci.
I switch in English again. It makes things easier. So Sandro told us about how works SMB by Worldline and the difficulties to negotiate with the short deadlines asked by the management. And of course, it's so the SMB is SMB and is far from the topics I have mentioned, but it shows you that the importance to maintain your trust between the management and the representative of SMB. And when this trust is gone, it makes things much more difficult. So I wanted to give the floor to Jean-Philippe, but I understand he have left the meeting from a urgent matter. So it was an interesting case because Jean-Philippe from Verizon is one of the only European councils that obtained a very interesting decision from the UK court about the breach of information and consultation rights. They first win before the CAC and the first level of jurisdiction dealing with European Council matters. The CAC said that very recent the management has a bad behavior in terms of information and consultation, and has also to pay the lawyer that supports the European Work Council, which was a very important decision. And then the chairman from the European Work Council of Verizon went to court to ask for a fine against Verizon, and it was 10 days ago, beginning of October, the Employment Appeal Tribunal of London gave a fine to the management of more than 30,000 euro and 5,000 euro for the expert fees also. So it was an interesting case. The CAC is the Central Arbitration Committee. So it's first, it's the only body in the UK that deal with dispute between European Council and management, also dispute with trade unions and management, the Central Arbitration Committee. Do you have any other question related to the competencies and everything what the European Council can do? So, Carol, I don't know if Carol is there from Generali, because you have also adopted a declaration about.
Yes, I'm here.
Diversity. So perhaps you can give a word about this. Also, it goes also beyond the traditional information and consultation rights. Thank you, Carol. Carol, you have the floor.
You mean on which subject? You mean on the IT project?
I thought about the Charter of Diversity that you have recently signed.
On a signé sur la dernière charte, c'était sur la déclaration conjointe sur la diversité et l'inclusion, c'est ça?
Yes.
Okay. D'accord. So I don't know if it's better to speak in English, maybe for the interpreters. So yes, we have signed the last joint declaration was about the diversity and inclusion. So we had several meetings on this subject, and well, I don't remember exactly the number, but we had several meetings. It was a big subject taken by the Select Committee of Generali, and actually it done quite well. We had many discussions. Usually the Select Committee prepare a draft of this joint declaration, and then the head office take this text and remove some things and put their hand on it, because sometimes it's a bit too juridic for them. So they want to have this joint declaration, because in general we do not write agreements. It's a joint declaration, but it's mostly the same because it's signed by the both parties. And this text then was quite innovative in our insurance branch. It was one of the first texts. And then after this text has been signed, I had a presentation. I have made a presentation on the insurance sector at the European level in front of the head office of all the insurance sector, the big bosses, and well, and now we are building some things with Unifinance, which is another instance on the top of our group. And well, actually, it is spread in all the group, and then what has been signed at the group level has to be declined in the other business units in all the Generali group in all Europe. And now every nation, I mean, every country has to take and to make their own texts. That's all. Is it okay for you, Frédéric?
Thank you, Carol. It was very useful, and so you probably can ask a question in the chat to know more. Again, Cipriani, I give you the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Frederic. Thank you, speakers. We had some exchanges on the chat, but no more general questions. I think we can move to the last presentation of today's agenda. I mean, the role of ETFs and ETUC. Handing over to Annika.
Thank you.
I cannot see. Oh, here. Okay, I see.
See it?
All right. I just couldn't see you before, but now I can see your screen. So go on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I will. So because unfortunately Miriam had to leave because she had to attend another meeting. She had to run to the commission, and I promised to cover up for her on this roundup, and that's no problem. It's like this, that both Miriam and I, even if we are working, we are representing two different trade union federations. And I will say that I should probably say European Trade Union Federations. And when I later on will use, and even in the text of the presentation use, it says ETFs, that's the European Trade Union Federation. It's maybe not everyone is aware of that. So Miriam is from ETF, the European Trade Union, the Transport Federation, and I'm from Uni Europa. But we are also together representing three of the sectors. It's transport, tourism, and retail that have been hit severely hard by the crisis. And all these sectors, especially transport and tourism, are facing massive restructuring challenges. And for both ETF and Uni, the EWCs are a very important platform to help to soften the consequences of these restructurings.
Just if I may to interrupt, you can play the slides if you wish to, of course, because it's the same issue that happened to me. We see your build mode, not the presentation.
Oh, or maybe that's. So, but do you see this one of the slides?
We see the last of the slides, last of the three.
Yeah, and that's because I skipped the other ones.
Okay, so if you wish to stay there, we can see it perfectly clear. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No problem. So then the issue or the question is, what can the ETFs, the European Trade Union Federation, do for the EWC, but also for the coordinators and the national trade unions? And I think that maybe the most important for us to do is to see to that appoint trade union experts, coordinators, and to see that they are well equipped for their job, to say, by providing relevant training, support, and advice. But because I think they are a vital part and very important for support for the EWCs. So I think that's maybe the most important thing we can do. And of course, it's already mentioned, we can help to identify external experts when needed, like economic experts, so especially due to restructuring processes. We can help out with training, like we are doing today, to empower EWCs and SMBs, to give you the understanding of your rights, and hopefully also the confidence to use your rights in your daily work. Even though let's say the daily work or support for EWCs are supposed to be taken care of by the national trade unions. But of course, as a European Trade Union Federation, we will of course also help out to see that both EWCs, coordinators, and the national trade unions get training, support, and advice. One way could be, for instance, to collect and share good examples from national trade unions that we are aware of, because some of them have developed some quite good union or national coordinated EWC support. I know, for instance, in Finland, there are three trade unions that are working close together and supporting and EWCs, and also with coordinated and joint trainings. So I think that could also be one good thing for us to do. And we can, of course, play a key role by helping to identify local contacts, to help you to set up transnational trade union networks and to coordinate, because coordination is very important. And I think it's, even though it's not just only for the EWC, but also for the local trade union representatives, it can improve and it will empower on all levels. And yeah, and also mentioned earlier, support to national trade unions and to EWC and coordinators on dispute and litigation. And of course, all we ETUFs, Federation, European Federation, we cooperate and we work also to work together with the EWC. I don't know, but maybe you already know, because we have drafted several joint recommendations for EWC due to COVID. And we also have one on Brexit. And they are all translated into 8 different languages. We are right now translating our last joint recommendation for EWC. It's on temporary arrangements for transnational meetings during COVID. Because the first one we draft were also targeting this, but we have realized, and I think we all have realized and seen, that this was not a short crisis. This temporary will be, it will be there, and we will have to handle this for a very long time. So we have, it's more information, and it's more due to that, and also template agreement that you can use. So, and what we also, of course, can do is that we to influence on legal developments related to EWC. And we have, for instance, together with EWC, addressed the Commissioner Smith, twice. We have written him a letter with demands to take swift actions to ensure that workers' information and consultations rights are respected, and especially now due to the increasing numbers of restructuring cases. So that's more or less so, and there's of course much more we probably could do and also want to do, but I promise we will be there. And what both Miriam and I will do afterward, we will send you all the presentations. We will send you the recording of this meeting, and we will also send you all the recommendations. So we will send you all that, and then thank you. And back to Cyprian.
Thank you very much, Annika. And Miriam as well. She's not here with us anymore, but you are the hosts of this meeting, and I can assure everybody that you are supporting the EWCs in your sectors very well. So if anything, go to Annika and Miriam, and you will find your answers. So we still have 7 minutes to the ending of the day. Of course, we have a session tomorrow at 10 a.m. with the same link, but using the 7 minutes, we can have 2 or 3 more questions answered by the speakers present in the room. So I'm opening the floor for the questions. The first question is, what is Worldline? Worldline is a company. It's one of the speakers was representing the EWC Worldline. So this is the answer for the first question, but maybe some more questions will be the floor is yours.
Oui, je peux répondre peut-être. C'est quoi Worldline comme société? Oui. Donc, Worldline, c'est une société, les moyens de paiement. Donc, quand vous faites une transaction au niveau de la carte Banque Contact Mr Cash ou une carte de crédit, vous avez le petit terminal, le boîtier, vous passez une transaction et la transaction vient chez nous et ça va à la Banque nationale. Ça passe par la chambre de compensation et donc ça va aux banques après. Donc d'un côté on a le client, de l'autre côté le client et le commerçant ou la banque et le client. Donc on touche tous les réseaux finalement. Et comme Worldline est très puissant, chaque fois qu'il y a un concurrent, on l'achète. Donc on a acheté Six Group et on a acheté Ingenico. Donc c'est pas des petits concurrents, on les a carrément avalés. Et maintenant, avec, je vais dire, on attendait la réponse au niveau européen pour le rachat d'Ingenico cette année. Et voilà, je pense que c'est accepté. Ils ont dû se séparer d'une partie de l'activité parce qu'il fait un peu doublon par rapport à notre activité. La partie e-commerce est rachetée, la partie terminaux, ils doivent trouver une solution pour la partie des terminaux. Voilà. Avec plaisir.
Thank you, Sandro, for a short advertisement of Worldline. Do you have any more questions? You can ask in any of the working languages, not only English.
Shipman, I think there was a remaining question about to know if a select committee was obligatory. Do you have already answered this question?
Yes, it was a question in the first session. I don't remember if any of the speakers addressed. Maybe Petra addressed this this question. It was question if the select committee is obligatory. Yeah.
Okay, so the answer is no. It's so it's in the directive you can negotiate an agreement, and the agreement can have a provision on a select committee, but it's not obligatory. It's up to the negotiators.
Okay, thank you.
Posso fare una domanda? Faccio in italiano, quindi mi è più semplice. Se avete problemi di traduzione ditelo. Nulla, io sono in Amazon, quindi siamo ancora nell'SNB. A marzo dovrebbero scadere 3 anni che sono stati faticosi. Come qualcuno di voi ha detto, sembra facile la teoria, ma è molto difficile poi la pratica. Parlare ovviamente con colleghi che hanno altri tipi di problematiche, altri tipi di approcci al lavoro, eccetera. Ho tantissime domande sul CAE, però cerco di limitarmi a un paio che sono secondo me molto, molto importanti in questo momento. La transnazionalità, infatti avevo fatto la domanda proprio vi do un esempio pratico. In Polonia Amazon ha aperto il magazzino mettendo decine di migliaia di lavoratori. Polonia non ha un mercato interno, è tutto per Germania, è tutto per il mercato comunque europeo, Germania, Francia, Spagna, Italia, eccetera. Ovviamente un lavoratore polacco costa un quarto di quello che costa un lavoratore italiano, tedesco. Noi l'abbiamo portata al tavolo questa questione perché secondo noi aumentare i lavoratori in Polonia potrebbe ovviamente influenzare, e ovviamente dovrebbe essere transnazionale, perché influenza anche la mancanza di aumento di lavoratori negli altri paesi, soprattutto Germania. Loro ovviamente sono fermi nei loro punti e dicono che assolutamente non è transnazionale. Io sono convinto, come tutti i miei colleghi, che arriveremo alle prescrizioni accessorie a marzo, perché momentaneamente ci stanno offrendo tutto sotto il livello minimo e quindi non possiamo accettarlo. C'è una buona discussione tra di noi, tutte le decisioni passano sempre tramite un gruppo che abbiamo formato con i media, con i social media, quindi per fortuna ci stiamo collaborando bene. Chi non collabora in questo caso è l'azienda. Ecco perché avevo fatto anche l'altra domanda, che se l'azienda non ci informa di quello che fa, e io già mi sto proiettando come in un CAE, cioè se l'azienda non mi informa mai di quello che fa e noi lo veniamo a sapere poi in seguito, io prevedo tanto utilizzo della forza legale. Ecco, questo è un mio scenario futuro di quello che potrebbe essere il futuro CAE. Non so se ci sarò o non ci sarò, però chi ci sarà molto difficile il lavoro per chiunque sarà membro in questo CAE.
Thank you for the question, Gianpaolo. As we all are aware, Amazon is a very difficult counterpart or player to cooperate with. Maybe one of my colleagues would like to answer those issues, and probably this will be the last answer of today. I'm looking at Petra or Frederick, maybe, or Vidya.
Yeah, one part of your question is a bit technical legally. I don't want to go into that, but maybe the more practical thing on information consultation, if you find out every time you're too late, they already implement it, they don't tell you things. Yeah, I think that is tough work. That's tough work for a select committee, because first of all, they have to, you have to be seen at least. So you have to develop an early warning system, as I said, internally as a group. You have to share projects with each other. That's where it starts. So you have to share the information, and that is already difficult enough. And if you have the information, then you can go to management. This is transnational, and you need to inform us. And you have to push, and not being afraid for conflicts in the first place. So I think it's tough, and you absolutely need the unions to support you, because in a company like this, you need backup. You need to be backed up by your local unions, and maybe also the Amazon. I don't know which union it is. Is it Uni in Europa, perhaps? Yeah. So you need this support, Gianpaolo, because otherwise you can't do it. So first of all, make sure you have the support, and then start, being friendly, and building up your case.
Definitely, we need to help each other. And this has been has popped up on the chat zone, and I agree with that. We are the EWC family, and we need to help each other.